I'm Liz Harrison, and this is the September 25th, 2023 regular meeting of the Brattleboro Housing Partnership Board of Commissioners at Ledgewood Heights Community Room, and we're starting at 4:30 p.m. So welcome all, and has everybody read the minutes from July 24th? Does anybody have any questions about them? If not, can I have a motion to accept them?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay,
I second.
thank you very much. All in favor? Raise your hand. Thank you. That's passed. So we have a resident here, and glad to have you.
Thank you.
And do you have any questions for us?
I have a couple.
That's fine. Please share with us.
I'm with the Red Clover Commons.
Uh-huh.
I'm no longer working, so I can participate more. I want to know if we could get back one person per area in the office like we used to years ago, and we didn't have a lot of problems then. But once you got rid of everybody going in every section, we got a lot of problems. I'm asking the board to vote on putting people back in the office in each section so we can handle the problems that people come in with, except not personal. They still have to make a complaint if it's personal. But I'm talking about the building, or what's wrong with it, or what we need, you know? We always handled that situation. I don't know if you remember Heidi.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember before her, Ruth?
Mm-hmm.
Things ran good when you had somebody in the office all the time, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it is. So when people needed to talk to the office, they were right there. And if they make a complaint about somebody else, you say you have to make a complaint paper. But we're here for getting things done in the building. What's wrong with the building? What's going on? We used to have that. And we didn't have a lot of problems when we had it. I'm asking the board to vote it back in. Number 2 of that, I would like to be one of the residents to be in one of the offices at half price of what you pay a regular person. I want to help get some of the problems solved. Not complain to the residents, but help with the problems in the building that people are complaining about.
So can you share a little bit about what problems you're thinking of that aren't about other residents?
Yeah, the garage. It needs to be dusted.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many years since the building opened, nobody's gone through the garage with a broom? So everybody's car gets dusty all the time. There's a thick edge around the edges, full of dust, okay, and leaves and bugs. So I want to see if we can get that done at least once a year to get all that dirt and dust out, preferably after the winter, because I know we're going to get a lot of dirt during the winter. But to get that done. 2, the complaining of people being too cold in the community room, which is good that it's set for 70 right now. It's comfortable. Okay, and 3 people would complain about between the doors and the hallway, you could see light and bugs coming through. We'd like to get the, what do you call it, the seal around it to stop, bugs coming in and air coming in the doors. Because I closed my door and you could see the light right through into the hall. And since we're on the bottom floor, we get the crickets, the spiders, the little bugs coming through on the first floor. Something like that. Oh, and two, people are complaining about the back windows never got washed. And clear out the spider webs up there. Okay?
Hi, Mary.
Trying to find a parking spot.
So,
Can you slide that?
stuff like that. Okay? And whatever else the people would come. But it would help solve people calling the office, not getting an answer. People are complaining about that, and people not calling back. Somebody would be in the office to take care of, okay, this is what you want, and we'll see what we can do, type thing.
And how many hours a week would you like that to be?
40.
So one full-time person per housing site?
Yeah, that's what it used to be. And
Well, it was only Heidi, so.
well, before Heidi, we had Ruth, and each section had their own person, and of course, a few.
So how many hours was Heidi there when she was the only property manager?
Yeah, that's what I mean. We had Ruth, we had other people, each section. And problems were taken care of or tried to answer. I think it would have solved more than half your problems if somebody was in the office, instead of trying to call the office and not get an answer, and they're complaining about that. That's what you need.
Okay. Well, I think the board hears you.
I know what she's talking about, but you explained at one time why that wasn't being done.
Yeah, I mean, so we have 3 people that work in occupancy full-time, which oversees the voucher, the paperwork, the certifications. They also do all the site, they do all the inspections for all the housing sites. They also do, answer all of the complaint forms, thinking about the complaints. When we had people on site, which was since I've been here, and I've only been here 11 years, so when I started, we just had Heidi, and then we brought George on, so we had 2 people.
23 years.
So it sounds like at some point there was full-time staff
Yes.
at every site, and I've never heard of that at the housing, but I'll double check. I've never heard of that. Since I've been here though, I have heard that people would like to have a full-time person just sitting at the housing sites. We don't have enough money to pay for everybody to have a full-time person at every housing site, but we do have a pretty complex complaint system, and we do have a system where people get called back. If people aren't getting called back when they call, if they call to leave a message, let us know. I'd like to know that. We do have a person who answers the phones, and we do have a pretty complex phone system that tracks all the calls. The other piece is that we've hired and we've really tried to secure supportive services staff. So we now have a part-time nurse that works at sites. We have 2 part-time nurses. We have a full supportive services team. We have a director. We have multiple SASH coordinators. We have a LEAP program. We have a SASH for All program. And so before, when it was just the property management, we didn't have all that. We intentionally created that team because we wanted people to have the connections to supportive services. If there's specifically a maintenance issue, like the garage, for instance, and I'll double check on that. I do know that we can't just sweep it because it just gets, we need to bring in something that's wet and we have to do a whole thing.
Hold on. The town has a sweeper that you can use. I was a janitor for 15 years. When we swept the halls and prevent the dust from flying, we used green sweep.
Okay.
It's moist, it keeps the dust down, so when you swept the halls or whatever you use, it kept the dust from flying around so you could get it out. So, yeah, you need a small town sweeper and a green sweeper.
Sure. Yeah, and I will find out from David exactly what happens. I know that when the second building closed, that part of that was they had to clean out the garage, and they did do it that one time. They probably haven't done it since. And you're right, we don't get to wash the windows as much as we want because it's so expensive and it's not approved in the Red Clover Commons budget, which is a little different budget because it's a tax credit budget. So the funding source isn't as large. We are raising the contract rents through Vermont State Housing. significantly this year, so that will increase our revenue somewhat. But we only get a certain amount of dollars from Evernorth to complete the maintenance. So we have to submit everything to them to make sure that it's approved.
All right, this question again. People are complaining why our rent went up twice. One at the end of the year and then one here in the middle of the year.
So your rent is specifically overseen by Vermont State Housing, so
Yeah.
they own the voucher. I believe they do the certifications once a year. Maybe they did it twice this year, but I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to find out about that. But that would be a question for Vermont State Housing.
2, why do we have to give out 2 reassessments? One for you guys and one for
It's a
the
great
state
question.
house?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's
Because
because your voucher, so we provide the housing, and Vermont State Housing provides your subsidy.
so we keep every year people saying, why do we have to make out 2?
It is a lot of paperwork, I agree.
Okay, so if it still needs 2 every year, I think you should put out a notice to everybody that we're going to need 2 different vouchers, one for housing and one for the state, because a lot of them don't understand why we have to fill out twice.
Okay, yeah, we try to put out information about it every year, and we have put that information out, like when the recertify comes.
Yeah, but the reserve comes twice.
So you're recertified for your voucher once a year from Vermont State Housing, and then Brattleboro Housing, as your landlord, needs to recertify certain information because we get subsidies to provide the housing. So you're absolutely right, it's a lot. It's more than probably what you had if you lived at a different property.
You're right.
But it is different. Yep, it's different. We have a funding source from Vermont State Housing, and so they hold your subsidy.
Okay, have you considered, if you would consider me being part of the office to work things out over there?
We don't have a position open right now.
No, I meant for getting one person for each section like it used to be.
Mhm.
If you,
Well,
I don't even
we
know
can
if they
talk
have,
about it with the board, and we can talk about when we do the budget if we can add another position.
and I was willing to take half the price you pay a normal person. I'm desperate to get things organized, getting done without, well, this one's got a problem, this one's got a problem. In each section, somebody's got to go bouncing from section to section to section instead of staying in the building where they are needed. Okay?
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
thanks
sharing.
coming.
Can I ask a question about the way the offices work?
Yeah.
So, we heard about all the staff that there is and that there are offices at every site. Do staff rotate through the offices, or are there also, I believe there's also off-site offices where maybe people also work? I'm wondering can you tell me a little bit about how, is the staff on site generally?
So we try to have the supportive services staff on site. That is our main goal. We have had somebody who's had to be on a temporary medical leave, so we have a vacancy and then we have an opening. So up until recently, we were very close to having the whole staff staffed. But so we do have somebody who has an office at the site as well as the nurse. So they're there weekly. They should be there weekly. That is the plan, to have the supportive services staff. As for property management, they come various times. So like if we're doing certifications, if we're doing inspections, if we need to have office hours, if they need to meet with somebody, they will go to that site. What we have found historically is that when property managers just sit at the site, nobody actually comes in to the office, or very rarely comes in at all. And so the idea of just sitting around waiting for people to come in doesn't seem to be the most practical use of their time. So we have created a pretty intricate complaint system so that we answer all of the complaints, and we have a record of everything that's going on. We also have a very complex work order system that we document in our software. We have a specific software for property management. But the the team really does spend a tremendous amount of time doing a lot of the paperwork that you spoke of. It's just a lot of pieces in the certification process. We're getting to our moving to work plan, which has been to recertify every 3 years. This property is not part of that because they do not have a subsidy with us. They have a subsidy from Vermont State Housing, so they will have to do their annual paperwork as usual. But we will, but we're hoping that freeing up some of those pieces will allow for more of the occupancy team to be stationed at various sites throughout the week. Now, we have many sites, so we wouldn't be able to have a full-time person just sitting in the property all the time, but we would share it with the supportive services, so part-time supportive services, and then potentially a property person to be at the site. I do know that we have a full fleet of maintenance people and maintenance managers who are on the site, so if there's a concern like something that comes up, then that would be a work order and that should be on, documented so that we have a tracking of that. I was on site last week. I ran into a bunch of our staff members. So it's not that people aren't on site, but we don't really feel like it's useful to have someone just sitting in an office.
How about
It's not-
part-time?
But I mean, just sitting there waiting for people. We like to have staff that's in the building, or if people ever want to make an appointment, they certainly can, and a staff member could meet them at the site. But we have found over the years that having someone just sitting there hasn't been the most useful way of using our time. And because we have such a small staff, we really have to maximize the amount of work we do, and we just don't have anybody who can just sit to just listen to either complaints or concerns, because we have two systems set up specifically to get that information.
Yeah, because I know where you're coming from, because I've been there 18 years. And there was Heidi, there was Laurel, and there was Courtney. And then, of course, COVID hit. But,
Ruthie, do you remember Ruthie?
Ruth's before me. But they, and I often thought the same thing. I didn't need to go to the office. Somebody should be here all the time. But we do. David's there quite a bit now with the sash. He's great. Boy, he's a ray of sunshine. But and then they explained why they just can't afford the help. And sometimes, yes, they would sit in the office. There'd be, once in a while, they'd be needed. I'm sure that if, like you said, if they needed an appointment, you'd call and they'd make an appointment and they could see the person.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want an appointment, you could make an appointment and someone will come down.
Okay.
I think what gets confusing is like if it's a complaint, that's not an appointment. That should be just submitted.
Right,
And if it's a work order, that should be submitted.
right.
But we do have a full-time person assigned to Red Clover Commons, and that's Ashley. That's the SASH coordinator.
Well, we rarely see her anymore.
Well, she has been out for a little bit of time, but we do have a full-time person who's designated to that site. And I know that we've had people filling in, like Lorelei has gone over, I've gone over, even I was at the food bank last week, I was there the week before. So because we have that absence, we have had to have more people going in on a regular basis.
And there would be people that need papers copied, and nobody's in the office for a day or two that we need the papers copied before we had to send them in by a certain date. So when I was asking, where is everybody for the office? I need papers to be copied so I can send them in. So we end up going to the library because the one next door to us went out of business. So we need somebody in the office, even if it's just 4 hours a day, just to get caught up with what people need. And a notice to say, this person's going to be in the office, let's say from 8 to 12 this day. If you need anything done, this is the time to come. Not to complain, but to get things done.
And that is why we have the SASH coordinator. So something like making photocopies for you, that would be their role.
Sounds like Ashley's missed.
Yeah, I read in her update that she was gonna be at the site more. She's planning on being on the site more
She is,
yeah, that's what she said in the update.
because we haven't seen her
Things
for a
that
long
are
time.
going on. Yeah. Make more of an effort, she said.
Yeah, the last couple of so starting last week, she had to take some time off, but she is going to be coming back. But I've been there many times when she was there, so I'm not sure if you're just missing her or if it's, but she's had pretty regular time at the
I've
the
seen
site.
her often there too
Yeah.
when I come by every day. So.
There was something else and I forgot.
Sorry. Yeah. So do you feel like we've heard your list of
Well,
issues?
you heard my list. I want you to be able to discuss it.
We will.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
You bet.
And did your question get answered, Michelle?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Executive Director's report. People all read that. Or anybody have any questions? Or anything you want to review?
Just wanted to review, there's a lot of information in the packet just around the FEMA and the Department of Emergency Management had visited Melrose. It was a very successful visit, so that was great. We are hoping to receive the letter of map revision from FEMA, which will be really helpful. And in the past month or so, we've had lots of visitors to Melrose from all around to really talk about just the success of the program, the success of the property, the work that's been done, the flood mitigation program. It's really a model for other places around the state, so people are starting to look at it. We have other people coming to visit later in the month, and we've had national people from FEMA come to interview us about the project. So that's been, it feels good to have that type of recognition.
Yeah.
We did put out the RFQ for the request for qualifications for an architect, and we had 3 interested parties, so we're hoping to get those proposals soon and then move forward in that direction to see what can be done on that property. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but but it feels like we're at least going, it feels closer. Other than that, there is some work that's being done still at Melrose in terms of, we had some damage during the July storm, so we have, we're applying for additional funding through a grant through the state of Vermont called the Resilient Communities Grant, and so we're hoping that we'll receive funding. We're already approved to receive funding for that to get the work done, and then the road will be taken over by the town.
Super. That's good. Good.
Any other questions about the report?
I was sad to see that Shauna Jones was leaving.
It is really sad. Yes, she did leave, and so she left her position.
Yeah.
I'm excited for her. She's starting a new position at Groundworks, which is great, so we'll continue to work from her, but absolutely. And that position was really created when I became the executive director. We sort of teased out parts of my job formerly, and Lorelai's doing pieces of it, and then Shauna as well. So we had based that job really specifically around things like Shauna liked, and also that she was really good at. And so we're taking some of that back to just really think about what we want to do going forward. So right now we're hiring for a full-time SASH coordinator, and Lorelai's working on some of the role around implementation manager for that. So it would be really hard to bring someone in to become an implementation manager. You really need to know the program. And so we're hoping that we will just hire a full-time coordinator at this point, and then we'll go from there.
Can you remind me which sites that coordinator will be for?
So she was only for Hayes Court. So she only had a half panel, and then the other piece was for the implementation managing. So while we really want to hire for a full-time, because we're really seeing that there's just a lot of need in terms of the SASH program.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Wellness and Services report.
I think we have the property manager's notes. Oh, this one right here.
Yeah, that is my, yeah,
Okay.
I was just, yeah, the monthly property manager I checked one off, I checked it off too soon, sorry about that. So the property manager's review and property manager's report, has everybody read that? And does anybody have any questions? Okay. The resident wellness and services report, any questions about that? These reports were thorough and well-written, and I want to compliment the authors, yes.
And I think they just started. Boy, he's got them swimming at the high rises. They really like him.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great to hear. We love having him on board.
And with his background too. It's
Absolutely.
good.
That's right.
It sounds as if the resident advisory and communications groups, I think, is that the right name for it? That it sounds like they're having some success in getting people to meetings.
Yes.
I think so. Liz, are you part of that group? The RAC board?
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Are there?
was there today,
Okay.
right here today.
Were there people there?
No, one other, I think, and that's it.
That was it. Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
That's all right. It ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
They're trying to hold to the different sites. Did
When's
you have
the-
lunch?
Well, bagel.
Okay.
When will it come back to where Clover come?
I'm not sure. I think they're trying to rotate to all the sites, so I'm not sure the last time it was there.
Because I think if you sent a notice or a phone call to people, there's going to be a meeting, this kind of a meeting there, you will get a room full, at least half a room full. Because that's 55 apartments in there, plus 18 to the other one.
Yeah. Is there somebody else besides you who represents that community?
No, just me so far.
Okay.
And there's only 3 other people I would trust to be on that committee, unfortunately.
Any other questions?
I actually did have another question about, I'm excited about this apricot. Sounds like that's getting, the software program's getting implemented and people, when I'm not sitting here, I try to spend a lot of time with data and thinking about data, and it sounds like y'all are trying to decide what data to collect, or it's already being collected?
Absolutely, yeah. So the Apricot is a new software system that we tested and we loved, and it was referred to us by several other organizations for the moving and work to measure some of those results. And it's really starting with Matt's group, the LEAP program, because they right now, because we're recertifying every 3 years, and people have to meet with Matt. Anybody who is 18 or over and under retirement age, who is not an adult with a disability, has to meet with him 3-4 times a year, quarterly, and to come up with a plan. And that's part of the reason why we are only doing recertifications every 3 years. So hopefully that will help people who have income to then make more money without having to increase their rent. And so some of the markers of that, that we're hoping to see is, are people more likely to be lease compliant? Are people more likely to pay their rent? And they're also just gleaning other knowledge of, like, have people increased educational resources, how many referrals we've referred out, and et cetera. So it's really a wonderful software. We received grant funding through HUD to initially buy the software. We received $25,000, which has paid for a huge chunk of it. And so it is really a huge asset to the program. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, Jeanette. I know. No.
There are certain things that have to be reported and have to be reported in the MTW report every year. So those things are being tracked, like Christine said, how many people did increase their income, how many hardship requests have you had, how many did you grant, all that kind of stuff has to be recorded. So I think that Matt and Lorelei in particular have been working really hard with the Apricot people to make sure that the reports that are set up are the reports that they need.
And we're looking at potentially using it for the Sash for All program as well later on. So we are evaluating that program. And part of the evaluation is seeing like what makes the most sense in terms of where to keep the data. We're finding that it's a little different than the traditional SASH program. So there are some markers that we can't really measure in a medical record. So we're hoping eventually to potentially use that as well.
I forgot to tell you something else. Can I?
Go ahead, sure.
People were complaining. We used to have trash pickup once or twice a year. We don't get it at all anymore. Like throwing away their old furniture and junk and stuff, and housing would pick it up by a certain date. We used to have that.
We had it at the RAD properties. We've never had it at tax credit properties.
What's tax credit?
The building that you live, the Red Clover Commons is a tax credit building, so it's not part of the RAD building. There isn't any funds specifically for trash removal as part of the tax credit. But we do have free trash removal in terms of household trash. in the
Well, I know
building.
about household trash, but I remember when I was in the high rise, we used to have this notice saying, anything you want to get rid of, furniture or things junk, furniture, anything like that, put it outside by a certain time, and then we'll come and get it and throw it away. We don't have it, not even once a year anymore. And that's, even though it's not my building included, people are complaining that they don't have it here either.
Well, we actually have had trash removal here because we started we started a trash program.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean trash, household trash is one thing. We're talking about furniture trash and stuff.
Yes.
Large about that?
items.
Yeah.
Okay.
A COVID kind
Yeah, sure. Good.
Thank you for your concern.
You're welcome.
Well, regarding the data, I'd be curious to see what it is that the executive director might like to bring to the board as far as maybe the key items that you're looking at, or
Sure.
maybe, I don't know, maybe every quarter or something, doesn't have to be all the time, but I bet there's some things that you're really proud of and some areas you're really concerned about. We're starting to get that easier to collect, so it'd be great to see that.
Black Subaru out here belong to anybody that's in my parking space?
Oh, that'd probably be me. We ran out of parking spaces. I don't know. I have to move.
It's a handicap spot, so I do need you to move there.
Okay, I have my handicap sticker up on it.
Okay, well, it's specific to my apartment.
Oh, okay. Let me.
So Gary, if you don't mind,
Thank you.
might be able to
Yeah.
park all the way down the
Yeah.
edge. Sorry
I'll be
about
right back. Sorry about the interruption.
Not at all. Okay, we understand.
And the other thing I forgot, when you said how many people came to the meeting today, I just realized a total of 4,
Oh, okay.
not 2, 4.
Yeah, so back to your point, Michelle, so it sounds like just key data points in terms of,
Yeah,
and I also think that if there's certain things that the board is looking for specifically, that would also be, I know like the last couple of months, we talked a little bit about our, the number of people who are in legal. I think that's important information for people to have and things like that.
The SASH folks who actually come and see, their panel, that's a good time to gather, issues that are going on with them, and then have that submitted and, whatever. So that's pretty much what happens, isn't it? When your SASH person comes to see you, that you've signed up with, and they deal with all the things they need to deal with, the client can certainly express other things, and they can turn that into the administration. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a good place to.
Yeah.
I signed up for SASH, and then one day went to the emergency room, and next day, can't think of his name. It used to be in my building. he asked, are you feeling okay? He says, I know you went to the hospital. How'd you know that? I said. Then he says, well, you remember the SASH, and we always check up on SASH people. I said, oh, okay.
They report it to housing.
Yeah.
If somebody comes into the emergency room,
Okay.
they send email
Good.
Well, they referred it to SASH, not
Referred
the,
it to
yeah, not
SASH.
to housing,
Yeah.
but yeah.
to the
Yeah, to the
SASH
SASH
coordinator.
Yeah.
And because, they do that, so if you go in the emergency room, the SASH coordinator.
I didn't know that.
Thanks, Gary.
I did not until just recently.
Yeah.
So they take care of it, and they have the SASH coordinators around for some particular reason in the building, they will take your complaints too. So if you have a concern, even though it might not be SASH, they'll take care of it.
Okay. Are there any other issues on Wellness and Services monthly report that we want to discuss? Okay. So, Section 8, Shelter Plus Care, monthly program updates. Does anybody have the orange one? Any questions?
The orange one.
I just had quick question about the SASH flashes. What community was this one for?
Highlights.
Pirates, okay. Thank you. So
Yeah, they just, yeah, I know, sometimes it's hard to see, so it goes out there and then they just throw a copy, so yeah, it probably only went there, so that's probably why I didn't say like why it was. where
I
it
was
from.
excited to see all those, so.
He just started, and the participation is pretty good.
Oh, that's great.
Good, it's very,
Yeah, forgot
it's
that.
more and more coming.
Pointing out the great information on these SASH bulletins. They're wonderful. Does anybody have any comments they want to make about the SASH bulletins? Okay, great.
Appreciation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work that goes into that.
So, any questions about our orange sheet? None? Okay. Go on. Okay. I call this chartreuse, I don't know what my color is. Anyway, the green one, check listings for August 2023. Does anybody have any questions about any of the checks or anything? Okay. And then the July 23rd comparables. Were there any questions about the finance comparables?
I had a question. I got to watch the Lunch and Learns,
Oh, good.
which was great and very, very helpful. And I learned in the Section 8 explanations that there are a few people who have moved out of the area, and so the housing partnership is in charge of sending that money along with the person who has moved out. And so I'm just wondering where to see that on here. Do you know?
If there's, if you look at the Section 8, let me see what page, I always forget to number these, I apologize. It's towards the back, so.
I want to do. I think it's 4 sheets in.
Oh yeah, you're right. So yeah, we count in 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the Section 8, and I don't think that they've outlined the portability. So we do pay for several people. So what they call that is when you port your voucher. So you port to a different housing authority,
Okay.
and sometimes if that housing authority doesn't have the money, like they don't have enough funds to absorb it themselves, then we will pay the HAP contract ourselves. So it would just be under the HAP, what we pay out for the HAP subsidies themselves.
So it's under the funding.
Yep, so if you look under,
Our
so we
HAP
receive,
funding.
yeah, so we receive what we received for the HAP funding, and then how much we've spent year to date. And they would absorb it right in the total of the HAP funding, so for the number of vouchers. However, now, because they've increased the funding for the Section 8 program for most of the programs around the state, many times when people, first of all, people are having a harder time porting because there's just housing, there's no housing. People are having a hard time finding housing anywhere. But when they do port, we've been able to have them port directly so that we're not sending that subsidy anymore. But we do have a handful that we still have continued to pay the subsidy for. I think one is in Northampton. There's just a couple around. So we pay that HAP subsidy, that portion, and it's deducted from our Section 8 portfolio. We have more in our Section 8 funding than we were able to spend right now because we can't get people leased up in the community because there's so limited numbers of people to utilize the Section 8 voucher. So we actually have more funding. We're looking potentially for the next year, and this will be part of our moving to work plan, to raise the cap on the number of project-based vouchers that we can have so that we would be able to increase that number. Right now it's capped at 20% by HUD. If we increase that, we would be able to have more project-based vouchers to put into permanent housing.
Yep.
And then I think we'll be able to utilize more. So that's two questions. So basically the portability is just lumped into our HAP payments.
Yeah.
It's not a tremendous amount.
Okay.
And we're not at the point right now where we would, if somebody wanted to port here, we'd be able to take them if they could find housing, and we could probably support porting out because we have such a large amount of cash flow in the program. We're also looking for next month to raise the fair market rents again. So right now we're analyzing just the amount of funding that we have and how much we have, how much we want to be able to raise it to be able to support people finding more housing. So there's two things coming up for you guys.
Good.
Okay.
But thank you for watching that.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this?
Oh, that's all.
You guys, any other questions? Answers? All right. So check signing, October,
This Friday is my final day.
yeah,
And next Friday's my first.
and you're taking October, I'm taking November. Does anybody want to volunteer for December?
I can do December.
You can do December?
Sure.
Okay,
We haven't gotten to January yet, right?
we'll work out that later.
Yeah. That's gonna be a cold month.
We've had some months where we couldn't do it because
Ah.
they had to close the office because of the weather.
But don't forget, I'm always a backup for anyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you're sick or you have car problems or you can't get there for whatever reason, just call me and I could usually work it out. Okay, so that's not a problem. All right, Melrose Terrace flood mitigation. The engineer's report. I thought that was very exciting. And we kind of talked about some of this already.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit of this. The pictures might be helpful.
And the redevelopment and all. The pictures were wonderful. Yeah. And my understanding is that Brattleboro Housing Partnership got major kudos from the town of Brattleboro for all the repairs on the water flow because it's really saved the town in the last big rain.
Yeah, I think at minimum it helped. At minimum, we didn't have to evacuate a lot of people. We would have had to evacuate Melrose for sure.
Yeah.
We would have had to evacuate several other areas. So at minimum, that's what it did. At maximum, it really did help to reduce flooding along the floodways,
Absolutely.
which is great. And if you look, I think at the back of this, where I kind of gave just like some brief numbers. If you look at the back of this sheet, you can really see on the top picture this is the flooding in July, if you can see how high the water is.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and where we're sitting is about 4.5 feet above.
Yeah,
So it was really, I mean, it was really, we stored about 4.5 acres of floodwater that day.
it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Okay. Any questions about the Melrose Terrace redevelopment information? I thought that was very well presented.
And this is just a copy of what, we have a wayside sign at the property now, and this is just what it looks like. So in case you wanted to, they put a lot of time and energy into this and writing it. Part of the, this was mandated because Melrose is a historical site, and so.
I didn't know that.
I wanted to ask you, Christine, the road when I was coming down doing check signing, when you're coming down Weston Avenue, not the one across from where the fire, but the road that you go down to get into Melrose, who maintains that road?
The road,
Melrose.
Melrose Street?
I believe that's the first one at the bridge,
Yeah.
when you get to the bridge.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one
Before you get to the second one,
the back road.
right, the back road.
That's Melrose Street.
That's
That's-
not
Melrose Street, yeah, that's a
that's
town
the
road.
Okay, I just wanted to find out.
And George Miller Drive will also be, you know, we've taken over just the interior part during the project, but then the town is taking it over again, so they'll have the whole throughway.
Yeah, I was gonna call it DPW because going down that road is very. So I know Peter Lynch very well and I know Dan Tyler.
I'm sure it's on the list somewhere.
It's on
you
the
know.
list
They've
of
done a
things.
lot of work on that road
They
actually,
did
because
patch it.
with draining and different
Yeah.
things, yeah.
So I've taken pictures and sent it to him about the condition, so. Just wanna keep my car working. Route 30's getting better.
Well, I can report to the board that I did meet with Janet and to get to know her a little bit. And our next step will be to meet with Chris Hart.
Great, that's wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah. We really appreciate Janet stepping up the plate
Yeah,
so
it
she
was
can be there
wonderful.
for us.
Yeah, it was great that she could come.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's wonderful.
Thank you, Michelle, as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, I bet.
I guess I just wanted to say that also, I came late, the meeting that was up, by Walgreens up there, that she had. Well, that was just awesome. It was excellent, good turnout, a lot of information. It was like, I don't know if that was on the agenda to talk about.
I just talked about it a little bit. We had the
Yeah.
HUD event. We had a HUD event for the connectivity, which was, you know, it was a really, really rainy day, but we did get
Yeah.
a handful of people. It was nice to see other people, and it was great for HUD to come down. You know, it's not that often that they come to visit Brattleboro, so that was really nice as well. And I really appreciate you guys coming for that, and also thank you for coming to the ice cream social that we had, and thank you, Pat, for coming to Shauna's going away party. All of that always makes it makes people feel good to have at least one person from the board there. So thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes,
I was there with my daughter. It was
good,
It was nice. It was nice to get to meet her too.
good. All right. Has everybody read the policy, the review, the draft of the procurement policy? Does anybody have any questions about it? Okay. If not, may I have a motion to accept the 2023 procurement policy?
Motion that we accept the 2023
Procurement policy
procurement policy
to be effective immediately.
to be effective immediately.
May I have a second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
The updates to the administrative plan based on moving to work, supplemental plan. This will be mailed separately, which we've all got. Does anybody have any questions about the information?
So these were really so just a little bit about how this works. So we have an administrative plan,
Here
which
it
is
is, right here.
which is what we base, you know, so anything that comes up, basically, that has to do with our Section 8 program, any of our RAD properties, we basically look, or in this book. And so Red Clover Commons has Section 8 vouchers that we hold. Red Clover Commons 2, not 1, that's Vermont State Housing. But, so everyone in our Section 8 program, Red Clover Commons 2, and all of our RAD property, we use this as our administrative plan for all of our rules. So if something comes up around, there's a question around a reasonable accommodation, if there's a question about some sort of, something that we might have to figure out, we always go back to this to say, well, what does our policy say? So when we went to moving to work and we changed some of the ways we're going to do things, like the recertification process, that means that we need to have that language in the administrative plan as well. So that when we go back and we reference it, or if somebody asks to see it, like legal aid or a residence, that we have it someplace and that we know that the board has reviewed it. So all of these changes were things that we approved in our moving to work plan. However, we need the language to be now in the admin plan. And thankfully for Jeanette, who is really, really good at this and has helped us out a lot, she really has helped to streamline this so that we know exactly what we need to change in terms of the language, so that it adheres with the moving to work plan that we put out in 2022, 2023, 2024.
I thought it was very well stated, very clear.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. It's a lot longer when you look at the actual changes that are gonna go in here, but I thought a summary would be
The summary is
better.
perfect, yeah. Does anybody have any questions? All right, then, I'd like us to move that we accept the updates to the administrative plan based on moving to work. Supplemental plans for fiscal year 22, 23, and 23, 24. I have a motion.
I motion to accept updates to administration plan based on moving to work, supplemental plan for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 and 2023 to 2024.
Have a second?
I second it.
Second, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. All right. Now, the next item is our annual board meeting. We have it on the November 13th at noon at Red Clover Commons.
Oh, really? Well, that's okay.
Yes.
April round too.
November 13th, right?
November
November
13th
At what
13th.
time?
at noon.
At noon.
Yes, please join us. And at that time, we will, it's our annual election for the next year's officers and stuff. So, any questions about that? All right. Then the blue sheet is the financial statement of the BHOI. Yeah.
You can use that.
Okay.
Hasn't changed much.
It hasn't changed much. Does anybody have any questions about the finances for that?
So this is the Red Sox, Boston Red Sox?
It's probably they have,
Really?
they do Red Sox Foundation, I
Yeah,
think is what it is, Red Sox Foundation.
Okay.
I know a lot of organizations that apply there. Yeah.
We're
So any
also gonna-
update on, please?
We're also gonna apply to the Celtics and the Patriots. We've done it before, but we're gonna do it again.
Good.
We'd make a little competition there.
And we did receive a small grant for, a small but mighty grant to have the workstations put in here. It was in technology grant, and that went through the BHOI, so that's wonderful. And the Brattleboro Rotary also donated some to get this off the ground, as well as Europa IT, who are donating their services to get it running.
That's
So
wonderful.
great.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great report.
And we still need a leader for BOH.
We are still
BHOI.
looking, yeah. I have a few people that I have solicited, and I have 2 people who are strongly considering it. So we're hoping that one of them will at least step in to try to get it sort of, to get the right people on the board to really help us to fundraise. You'll get there. But we got the cards printed. Alicia, thank you very much.
Is there any other business that we need to bring up or any comments?
I guess this is just an awareness now that we have this rise in COVID. I don't know if you're putting out information now to people in the buildings now, have any vaccines or anything they can get?
We haven't put out any additional information as of right now. We haven't received any additional guidance either from the Vermont Department of Health or anybody else, but I have been following it myself and tracking it. At this point, we haven't received any additional guidance other than, continuing to get people vaccinated. I don't believe that we'll be vaccinated at site. We haven't heard yet, but we will try to do the flu vaccine at least on site, which will be great. That's what we do annually if we can do both. That was great. Rescue supported that in the last few years, so I'm sure we'll be able to offer that. I think we could always put out more information around continuing to mask if people are worried and testing. I just ordered more tests today for the SASH program as well as for our staff, but we are seeing an upswing for sure.
I think the pharmacies are going to do it too.
They
Oh,
are.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we're just
they're
put our
part.
schedule.
Yeah.
So,
I think they're waiting for what happened with Medicaid. I don't know if you read, they are having issues with costs and they weren't able to. I guess there's a certain source key they have to input to get paid or to pay for the injection. So they're trying to get the kinks out. So by next week, it should be ironed out. Fingers crossed.
And have they made any changes at the hospital right now? They're still not masking or they haven't changed any protocols.
it's your
That's
discretion
right.
if you want to put the mask on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
symptom
right.
based.
Right, it's symptom-based masking and we're watching the local cases, our employee cases and also national cases. We actually hired a new infection preventionist who's an epidemiologist and he's
That's good.
master's in public health. He's wonderful and we're watching really closely, but no changes right now.
Yeah, and that's one of the resources I always look at is the town and the hospital. Those are the two places that we sort of look and we try to align with what other people are doing as well.
We saw an increase and we expected that with return to school
Yes.
and it's flu
Blue
season. So everybody wash your hands and stay home if you're sick.
Anything else? May I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion that we adjourn.
Second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts and feelings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Christine.